I built this fully automated social media content generator app using just Lovable and N8N. All you have to do is describe the topic of the content and select the number of images you want to generate. Then the app will automatically start searching the web for relevant information, and based on that start generating highly engaging infographics that go viral in platforms like Instagram, LinkedIn and X. It then returns them back to the Lovable interface, where we can choose the specific time we want to schedule them for posting to our social media. And finally, our app creates customized captions for each platform based on the content of each infographic and schedules them to be posted at the specific times we selected in our Lovable interface. The best part, you can realistically sell this to content creators for thousands of dollars each, because it saves them massive amounts of time creating and posting all this content by themselves. So in this video I will show you how you can build this app step by step, so by the end you are able to recreate it on your own. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is to come over to lovable.dev and create a front-end interface. So I'll simply come over here and type, I want to create an app that generates good looking infographics. The user should be able to input a text message basically explaining the topic they want the infographic to be about, and also the number of infographics they want to create. Then the app will generate the infographic with a backend automation in N8N, and it will return it so the person can take a look at it. And you can see, guys, that I specify that the actual infographic will be generated within N8N, and then I also tell it don't create any backend functions. I will do all of this with N8N, just focus on building a nice looking UI. And then I will say make the UI modern looking with nice vibrant colors, and what I will do is come over to Google and search for nice looking UIs and look through them till I find one that I really like. Let's say for example I really like this one, so what I will do is simply come over here, download it, and come back over to Lovable and simply upload it and click on enter. This way Lovable also has a visual guide of exactly what I'm going for. So now Lovable has started building our app for us, but while it's doing that, let's actually go over to N8N and start building our automation. So once we are in the N8N interface, the first thing we have to do is to obviously add in a trigger. So to do that, simply come over here, click on add first step, and we're going to search for a webhook. And the reason we're selecting a webhook, guys, is because a webhook basically serves as the connector between the front-end interface we're building right now with Lovable and the backend automation we're going to build within N8N. This node, and specifically this link over here, allows us to transfer data between the two. So that's why we're using a webhook. But before we do anything else, we have to come over here and change the HTTP method from get over to post, since we're actually going to be using this specific method to send data back and forth with our Lovable front-end interface. So now that we did that, the only thing we have to do is to come over here to this link and simply click on it so we copy it. And then we need to come back over to Lovable, to which you can see it actually finished generating the interface, which actually does look very good, guys. And as you can see over here, we can also select how many infographics we want. Before we actually test this interface, what we have to do is to simply come over here and simply tell Lovable, this is the webhook URL I created in N8N, make sure you send all the data and send it in this interface over there. And what I will do is simply come over here and paste the link we just copied and simply click on enter. This way Lovable will actually take this link and embed it inside the website, meaning that every time we write something over here and we select how many infographics we want, all of this information will get sent back over to N8N, so we can actually use it in our automation. And boom, Lovable just finished making the changes, so let's actually test the webhook to see if it works. So all we have to do is to simply come over here and fill in this form. Let's say for example our topic will be AI news, and how many infographics we want, let's put it at 2. And as you can see, I do need to input more than 10 characters over here, so let me say AI news today. But then before we come over here, click on generate 2 infographics, what we first have to do, guys, is come back over to our N8N scenario and make sure we click on listen for test event, so our webhook actually expects to receive data from a Lovable interface, because if we don't click this, it will not actually be able to receive the data. So now simply come back over to Lovable and click on generate 2 infographics. And as you can see, success, your 2 infographics are already downloaded. Obviously they're not yet, but let's see if N8N actually received the data. And boom, guys, if I come back over to N8N, you can see over here we do have an output, which means that we have successfully connected a front-end interface in Lovable with our backend automation in N8N. And if I scroll all the way down here, guys, to where you see body, over here we can see the topic that we just inserted, which is AI news, and the quantity, which means basically how many infographics we want to create, which is 2. Alright, so now that we have this data, let me actually pin it to make it semi-permanent, so when we're testing the workflow we're going to build, we don't have to constantly go back and forth with Lovable to send brand new data. And then I will simply come and click off here, and now it's time we're in the next node, which is going to be an AI agent. And why are we going to use an AI agent, guys? Well, it's actually pretty simple. We want to connect this AI agent to a tool that is actually able to search the internet to actually find the newest AI news. This way our post is actually relevant to a specific time, and it's not like AI news from 2 years ago. And we're doing that because platforms like X and LinkedIn are very news based. So us having the latest information and being able to present them in an infographic will actually give us a massive advantage in these platforms. So let's actually configure our AI agent to do that. The first thing we have to do obviously is come over here and add in a chat model to our AI agent so it actually has a brain. I will select ChatGPT. You can obviously select each model you want, and over here you need to select your credentials. Now if you don't have credentials, guys, what you can do is come over here and click on create new credentials, and all you need is an API key. Now how are you gonna get this API key? Well, you're actually going to have to go to platform/OpenAI/API keys. I will leave a link for it in the description below, and simply come over here and click on create new secret key. Over here you need to give it a name. I will name it N8N, for example, and I will click on create secret key, and it will give you this, which is your brand new API key. All you have to do is to simply come over here and copy it, and simply come back over to N8N, paste it over here, and then come over here on top and click on save. And as you can see, credentials were successfully created. So now if we close this off, we can officially select a brand new credentials over here. Then over here you can select a model. I will leave it on GPT-401 mini, and then I will close this off. And now guys, it's actually time we're adding the tool that I told you before, that's actually going to search the web and bring us the latest information for the topic we specifically give it. So to do that, we will actually use Tavily, which is a tool that's able to search the web and find the latest information. But if we come over here to tools and we search for Tavily, you can see nothing comes up, and that is because Tavily doesn't have pre-made node inside N8N. So in order for us to actually be able to access it, we will use an HTTP request. And now guys, I know a lot of people get intimidated by HTTP requests, but it's actually super simple, and in this video I will show you exactly how you will be able to configure not just Tavily but every HTTP request simply by following some simple steps. So in order for me to actually show you this, let's actually configure the settings of Tavily over here. The first thing that we have to do is come over to tavily.com. I will leave a link for it in the description below, and simply come over here and sign up and create your account. And once you created your account, you will be brought over to this page. Now all you have to do, guys, is to simply come over here to the left and click on documentation. And then over here, since we actually want to use an API, we'll come and click on API reference. And this opens up the Tavily docs, which a lot of people see and they're like, oh, this is super intimidating, so many options. Guys, it's actually super simple to navigate. You just need to make 3 clicks. So as you can see down here in the API reference, we currently are, which is the exact function we want to use with Tavily. So now all we have to do, guys, is to simply come over here to where you see the snippet of code, and since we see that it is on CURL, what this actually means is we're able to copy this full snippet of code, import it inside N8N, and will basically populate all the options for us. So we basically won't have to add all the options yourself. And the best part is that most tools like Tavily actually have this CURL, which means that for the vast majority of them, you can configure them very easily using this method. So all I will do, guys, is simply come over here and click on copy, and then I will come back over to N8N, and all I have to do is to simply come over here and click on import CURL, and simply paste in all the snippet of code I just copied, and simply come over here and click on import. And you can see it populated all of these settings for us, so we basically didn't have to do anything. Now we still do need to configure some things, and I will show you exactly how you can configure this right now. So if we come back over to the documentation, guys, and we actually sit there and read some things and we're not intimidated by it, we can see that we literally have 2 things to actually configure. Over here where it says authorizations, and over here where it says body. Let's first start with authorizations. What do we need to do? Well, it basically tells us that we need to input our API key in Tavily. So Tavily knows, oh, this person used my service, so I can build them accordingly. Now Tavily does give you free credits once you first sign up, so you don't have to worry about that until you run out of free credits. But you still need to input your API key. So to get your API key, all you have to do is to simply come over here to the top where there literally is a button that says get an API key. Simply click on it, and this will bring you over to this page, in which over here you can see your API keys. All you have to do is to simply come over here and click on copy, so you copy your API key, and then you simply come come over here, guys, in the header parameters to where you see authorization, which if you remember is exactly the same thing we just read before in the docs. And over here you see better space, and then it has this token inside quotes. So all you have to do is to simply delete this and paste in your API key you just copied. But make sure you leave in a space in between them. So it should be better space and then your API key. So now we finish configuring the authorization. Now what's left, if we go back over to Tavily, is actually just the body parameters. And again, a lot of people get intimidated by here. They're like, oh, all of this text, I don't know how to read it. It's very technical. Guys, it's not technical at all. All you have to do is to simply sit there and read it, and you will understand immediately what it wants you to do. So basically the body parameters are us telling Tavily what exactly we wanted to search for. And you can see, it literally tells us exactly what each body parameter means. Over here we have the query, which is basically the search query we're going to execute with Tavily. And it also has an example. So who is Leo Messi? Would be a query we could actually send in Tavily. Since we actually want the latest AI news, what we're actually going to send as a query is the latest AI news. So how I'm gonna configure this within N8N is, again, if we come back to our HTTP request over here and we scroll down to where we see the body parameters that are over here, we see this snippet of code. Again, a lot of people are intimidated by it, but guys, think of what we just read inside the documentation. We literally read what a query is, and over here the first thing we see, if I zoom in so you can actually see better, is a query and it has the same example we just read, which is who is Leo Messi. So what do we actually need to input in here? Well, we obviously need to input our actual question. So how are we gonna find that? Well, we have this inside the webhook. So all we have to do is to simply scroll all the way down here till we find what we're actually searching for, which is the AI news today, and simply taking this schema over here. Let me actually delete this because I didn't delete it before, and make sure before we actually drag and drop this, make sure you come over here and click on expression so we can actually input expressions inside this JSON, and then we simply come over here to where we have our topic, take this and drag and drop this inside the quotes, and boom, now Tavily knows exactly the topic that we wanted to search for, which is AI news today. And we can literally do the same exact thing with all of these parameters over here, guys. So let's say, for example, we actually want to configure the search depth. You're like, oh, what is search depth? You probably don't know. Well, guess what? I don't know either. But all I have to do to find out is simply come over here again in the Tavily docs and simply scroll all the way down until I actually find the search depth over here. And it literally explains to me exactly what it is, which is basically the depth of the search as I'm reading it right now. And we have two possible options that we can input in them. We can either put in basic or advanced. So all you have to do is to look which one of those do I want. Do I want more advanced search, so more in-depth search basically? Sure, I would want that. Simply come over here, copy the advanced text, come back over here to the body parameters, and on the search depth, we can actually change it from basic to what we just copied, which is advanced. And boom, we configure this as well. And we can do the same with all of these values over here if we actually want to change them. Now, for this example, I don't actually want to change them. The only thing I really care about is this one, which is the query. But if you actually want, you can come over here and customize all of them. And you can see how it's actually not that hard to configure the body parameters and the authorization over here, simply because we just got in and we actually read the docs and we're not actually scared of them. And we didn't say, oh, this is too technical, I'm scared, this is too much text, like a lot of people actually do. So don't make the same mistake, just read the docs and you will definitely figure it out. So now we have successfully configured our Tavily HTTP request over here. The only thing we could change, maybe we could come over here in the description and like describe a little bit better to the AI agent when we want to use this node. I'll simply come over here and say, make sure every time you get a request, you look inside this node for data before you give me a response. And I will simply come and click off of here. Now, what we actually need to do is to come inside the AI agent and actually give it a prompt so it actually knows what it should be doing, since we haven't given it any yet. So the first thing I'll do is come over here and change this from connect to chat trigger node to define below. Since we're not connected in a chat trigger node, we're actually connected into a webhook. And then over here, we need to type in our prompt, basically telling our AI agent what we wanted to do. So let me just come over here, click on expression and open this up so you guys can see better, and I will say research this topic. And what I will do first of all is come over here, find the topic, we input it inside a Lovable interface, simply take this and drag and drop this over here so the AI agent actually knows the topic we wanted to research. And then I told it, make sure you do all the research via Tavily, which I have given you access to as a tool. After you get the data from Tavily, I want you to craft a specific prompt that I will be able to import to ChatGPT image generation and create me an infographic relevant to that topic at hand. Make sure you output only the final prompt that I can give to ChatGPT and to generate this image, nothing else. Don't say, oh, I've generated this is the latest AI news, etc. Because I found out when I actually tried it, it did give me the response like this, and we don't actually need this, we just need the prompt we can take, input inside ChatGPT image generation, so we actually get an image. So basically told it what not to do as well, and I will simply come and click off of here, and it's time we actually test this to see if it works. All I have to do is simply come over here, click on execute step, and you can see the AI agent is running right now. It's looking inside Tavily to take in all the data that Tavily is doing the research for, and boom, it just finished executing. And if we open this up, we can see over here in the output, it says create an infographic title, AI news, and basically has information about the infographic, which it actually got from our Tavily to over here, which actually set the web to find the latest AI news, which is exactly what we wanted again. So the next thing we have to do, guys, is to actually generate our image with ChatGPT images. So to do that, we simply come and click on the plus icon over here, and what we'll do is search for OpenAI and click on it. And over here you can see on image actions, we actually can generate an image from inside this node. So we don't actually have to do it like we had 2 months ago, where we actually had to put another HTTP node and configure it the same way. We can actually just access the ChatGPT image generation from this built-in node over here, which is honestly amazing. So now over here, the research will leave this on image. On operation, we will leave it on generate image, since that is exactly what we want to do. And then over here in the model, I will select GPT image 1, since this is the latest and best model in my opinion by far. So make sure you choose that if you want to generate the highest quality infographics. And then all we'll do over here, guys, for the prompt, I will simply come over here and take the prompt our AI agent generated before. Simply take this and drag and drop this over here. So now GPT images actually has access to this prompt that our AI agent just created. So now it's time to actually test this and generate our image. All you have to do is to simply come over here and click on execute step, and as you can see, the node is running, which means that an image is being generated right now, and boom, as you can see, it just finished executing. So if I come over here and open this up, we can see that we do have our image over here, and if I click on view, we can see that we have this amazing infographic over here, which actually has the latest AI news that we just searched on the internet with the Tavily tool, which is incredible if you ask me. Guys, I actually did make a mistake over here, and that is the reason why I only got one output over here when I should have gotten two, if you see over here, because the quantity that we inputted inside our Lovable interface is 2. And the reason we only got one is because I simply forgot to tell the AI agent to give me 2 prompts, and it only gave me 1. So how I can fix that is simply I will come over here, unpin this data, as I will simply come over here at the end and simply tell it, make sure you create this many prompts. And what I will do is scroll all the way down here to where I have the quantity and simply take this and drag and drop this over here. This way the AI agent knows exactly how many images we want to create, so it can actually create the same number of prompts in order for us to get our desired result. So now simply come and click off of this here. Now if I come over here and run this again, you see the AI agent is rerunning, and it will actually create 2 prompts right now. So we can actually generate 2 completely different images. Also guys, what I have to do is simply close this off and actually come over here, click on require specific output format, and then we will need to add in an output parser, which what an output parser will enable us to do is basically tell the AI agent that we want 2 different prompts to be inserted in the same exact table, because if we don't actually put an output parser, the AI agent will give us the 2 different prompts basically in the same message. It will just say the first prompt is this, and then underneath it the second prompt is this, but we want the prompts in the same schema but in different rows of the table. That's why we're adding in an output parser. And now what I will do is simply come over here and click on structure output parser, and basically over here we have to write in JSON, so our AI agent knows exactly how to output the data. So obviously I will not write this JSON myself. All I will do is come over here on the Ask AI assistant and I will simply tell it. So what I did was basically explain my issue exactly over here in the AI assistant, and it gave me this JSON code, which I simply can just come over here, copy, come back over here and paste. And now if I actually come back and run this AI agent, you guys will see that once it is done running, if we open it up, over here in the output section, we do have an output, and we have both prompts inside an array, I might add, which actually is super useful, because if the quantity of our prompts was actually 3, then we will have a third prompt. Because we have an array, and we can actually input an array inside the generate images. What we have to do, guys, is simply come and click off here, and what we will do is come over here and add in a split output, which what this actually does, as you will see right now, is if I take this value over here, the prompts, simply drag and drop this over here, and I click on execute step, you see that it basically splits this prompt schema over here and basically inputs everything that's inside it over here in a table in a nice way that we can actually use to generate the images. So that's why we're adding this node, and now I will simply come over here and connect it to the generate an image, and I will simply come over here to the generate an image node. I'll simply delete the previous one and come over here in the output we got from the split out node, simply take this and drag and drop this over here. And now if I come over here and click on execute step, you see that it has started executing, and once it is done, it will give us 2 images instead of 1. And boom, it just finished generating, guys. And as you can see, we actually have 2 brand new images over here, which if I come over here and click on view, we can actually take a look at the first image, and then we can also come over here and take a look at the second image as well, which is simply amazing and exactly what we wanted. And guys, I'll leave these things inside the video to show you how you will actually run into errors when you're building these workflows, but how you can actually think and find out the solutions in order for you to fix these errors and being able to move on with finishing the automation. So now that we have generated our image, what we need to do is to send it back in the Lovable interface so it can actually be displayed there, and then the user can choose in which platform he wants to upload this infographic and at what specific time. So how are we gonna do that? Well, a lot of you might think that we actually will use and respond to Webhook node, which we cannot actually use like this, simply because we cannot send an actual image file that we have over here back in a Lovable interface, because Lovable is simply unable to receive files like that. So how we're actually going to work around that? We actually need to delete the respond to Webhook node for now at least, and we actually need to take both of these 2 images and upload them in a publicly accessible URL. This way we can send these URLs to Lovable, which Lovable can actually handle and display inside our app. So how we're actually going to get these public URLs, guys, is we have to come over here and search for an HTTP request. And now a lot of you might say, why we're not just simply using Google Drive? Because Google Drive cannot actually work with this method, guys, because it requires a lot of permissions in order for it to be the exact type of link that Lovable can actually display, and there's a lot of back and forth. And I actually tried to do it at first with Google Drive and I was unable to do so, simply because you need to do a lot of things to the Google Drive link. While I have found another way that is actually significantly easier, and I will show you how you can do it solely with one HTTP request. You're going to have to come to ImgBB.com, which is a website which allows you to upload images to publicly accessible URLs. And don't worry about the pricing, guys. It is actually free to use for the use case we actually need it. And all you have to do is to simply create an account and then simply come over here on the about, simply click on it and go over here to where it says API. Now this will open up this page, which is actually the docs of ImgBB. Now how we're actually going to configure this is actually super simple. All we have to do is come over here to where you see the CURL, which, if you remember from previous videos, is the snippet of code that we can actually simply come over here, copy it, and come back over to N8N, simply open up our HTTP request. And all we have to do, guys, is simply come over here where it says import CURL, simply click on it, and then come over here and paste in what we just copied. And then we simply come over here and click on import. And guys, what this actually does, as you can see, is basically inputs all the values and all the parameters we actually need to have inside our HTTP request in order for this to work. Now obviously we do need to configure some things in order to make it work, which I will show you how you can do right now. So the first thing we actually have to do, and because I don't just want to simply follow this video blindly, but I also want to show you the thought process behind how I'm configuring this. So the thing you always have to do is to come back over here to this page, which is actually the docs page, and simply read the docs, guys. And I know a lot of people don't actually want to read them, but you're not going to be able to configure your HTTP request if you don't actually read the docs of the tool you're trying to use. If I actually come over here and read it, over here we have the URL, which we actually imported with the CURL, so we don't actually have to configure this. But over here we have the parameters, which is basically all the information we're going to send over to the ImgBB tool over here in order for us to be able to upload a specific image. And what we actually have to send over is the key, which is the API key, which is actually required, and the image, which is required as well. And then over here we do have 2 other parameters that are optional and we don't actually need to configure inside our node. So what we have to do is basically these 2 parameters, the key and the image. And if we come back over to our HTTP request over here in N8N and we scroll down here to the send query parameters, we can see over here that we have a parameter that is actually optional, if you remember, which is the expiration. So we don't actually need to configure this, and I'll simply delete it. And over here we have the key, which was actually required, and it's basically our API key that we have with ImgBB. So how we're actually going to get this is we're going to come back over to the ImgBB page, simply go over here at the top and click on Get API Key, and then simply come over here and copy this key, and come back in our N8N interface, simply delete this value over here and simply paste in our key. So now we have successfully configured this parameter. Now the next parameter that we actually need to configure is in the send body section over here, which is the image, which again, if you remember, it is a parameter that is actually required. And if we come back over here to the docs, guys, and we find the image, we can see that it is a binary file or a URL for an image that we want to upload. So basically it is the image we just generated and we want to upload to this specific tool. But since we actually have this inside binary data over here, what we actually have to do is come over here in the body content and change this from the current option we have now to from data, and then over here in the parameter type, again we need to change this to from data from N8N binary file, since this is a binary file in N8N. And now we simply configure this as usual. We simply type in image over here, and then over here in the input data field we simply input the name, which is data, as you can see over here. So I'll simply copy and paste it over here, and now we're done configuring this node. So now it's time to actually test to see if this actually works. So I'll simply come over here and click on execute step, and boom, you can see over here we did successfully upload 2 new images over to ImgBB. So now what we can actually do is take in this URL over here and send it back in our Lovable interface, so we can actually display the image inside there. But before we actually do that, guys, since we're aiming to post to either X, LinkedIn or Instagram, what we actually have to do is simply save in these 2 prompts over here, so we can actually generate engaging titles and descriptions for this specific post later on. Because if we simply don't save these 2 prompts and then we build a brand new workflow over here after we have selected the platform that we want to post and the time that we want to post, and we simply build this workflow over here, we won't actually have descriptions and titles that actually fit the specific images we just generated over here. So in order for us to be able to generate those, what we have to do is simply save in these 2 prompts over here, or how many prompts that we actually have, inside a Google Sheet, for example, so then we can call them and access them later on where we actually need to create the descriptions and the titles. So that is exactly what I'm going to do now before we actually send these images back to Lovable, and then we will actually send them. So to do that, we simply have to come over here and click on the plus icon, simply search for Google Sheets, simply open this up, and since we actually want to create new rows for each new item that gets inserted over there, we will actually come over here and select append row in sheet. Now over here, the first thing you have to do is to obviously select your Google credentials. I will select mine. Then over here we'll leave this on sheet within document. Over here we'll leave this on append row, since that is exactly what we want to do. Then over here from the document list, we actually need to select the Google Sheet that we want to insert all of this data to. So I created this brand new Google Sheet that is called description, that has these 3 parameters inside it, which is the number of the image, the prompts from the agent, and the status, which we're actually going to use later on, and I will explain to you why I use this in a bit. For now, keep that we are actually going to use the number of images, which we're basically going to use to match each image which is specific prompt from the agent over here, and then the prompt from the agent I think is pretty self-explanatory. It will be the prompt that the AI agent gave to create the image. So now we're going to come back over to N8N, simply come over here and select the Google Sheet description from this list, and we'll select Sheet 1 as well. And now we actually need to map these columns manually. So now over here in the number of images, what we actually have to type, guys, is this. And now I know a lot of you might say, but how did you actually write this? I simply came over here and the AI assistant explained it what I wanted to do with this number of images, and it basically told me. And what this basically does, guys, is if I come over here in the webhook I showed you, we can see that we have this scheme over here that is called quantity, that is actually a number and has inside it the number 2. What this actually does is basically takes in this quantity and basically splits it up into different numbers. So if the quantity is 2 over here, what this will do is basically give the number 1 and 2. If the quantity over here is 4, it will basically give 1, 2, 3, 4. So now over here in the prompts from the agent, we will close the webhook over here, make sure we come over here to the split out section, since we have split out the prompts before, and simply taking this schema and drag and drop this over here. And the status, we will not actually do anything with it right now, so I will simply delete it. Now if I come over here and click on execute step, you can see that we do have an output over here, guys. And if I come back over to the Google Sheet over here, guys, you can see that I have the numbers of the image over here, and over here the prompt of the agent, which of course is pretty long, so it goes and goes. But we basically have managed to input it successfully inside here, which is exactly what we wanted. So now we can come back over to N8N and simply send these two images back to be displayed in a Lovable interface. So to do that, I will simply come over here, search for respond to webhook, and I will simply click on it. And what I will actually do, guys, is come over here and change this from respond with from first responding item to a redirect, respond with a direct to a given URL. And I'll simply select this one, and what I will do is come over here in the HTTP request, simply take in the URL that has the images we created, simply drag and drop this over here. But now before I actually come over here and click on execute step, what I have to do is click off of here and go all the way over here to the start to my initial webhook, simply click on it, and I have to change this respond method from immediately to using respond to webhook node. This way we can actually send data back in a Lovable interface, because if I don't change this, we will not actually be able to send this data. So now click off of here and I come back over here in my respond to webhook node, and now I can actually execute it. So we send these images back into Lovable. So I will come over here and click on execute step, and boom, as you can see, it just executed. But if I come back over in my Lovable interface, I cannot actually see the images we just generated. And that is because, guys, we have not told Lovable it actually should be expecting to receive data back so you can actually display it. So that's exactly what we have to do right now. So I wrote, hey, make sure you actually expect to receive data back from the webhook. I will actually send you a redirect URL, and make sure you take this URL and display it inside this interface. And then I also said, I want you to display each one of those images separately, and for each image I want you to have 3 options that I can choose to either be posted on X, LinkedIn or Instagram. And then for each one of those options, I want you to give me an option to schedule the time I want to post them. And I will simply come over here and click on enter. And now Lovable, guys, will actually make all of these changes. It will basically be able to display the images now. Then after that, it will give me the option to post them in the different platforms, and also the option to schedule them. So I will be back with you once it is done. Alright, so Lovable just finished making the changes, so it's time we actually test to see if it works. So I went back in the N8N workflow and I make sure I click on listen for test event to the webhook. And now what I will do is come over here again and type in the exact same thing, basically AI news today, and I will come over here and select 3 infographics this time, and I will come over here and click on generate 3 infographics. As you can see, it started generating the infographics. And if I come back over to N8N, I can see that the workflow is actually running. So now all I have to do is to wait till it actually generates all 3 of those images. And boom, guys, it just finished executing. And if I scroll all the way down here, we can see we have these 3 amazing looking infographics with all of these options, so we can actually schedule them and post them on different platforms. But before we actually do anything with this, I want to tell you that I did had a lot of back and forth with Lovable over here, because it simply had trouble recognizing the images that I was sending through the URL. And how I actually managed to troubleshoot it is I basically came back over to N8N and came over here to the respond to webhook node and simply changed this to where I had it before, to respond with a direct URL to text. And then I basically told Lovable that I'm actually going to be sent the URLs in text format. And as you can see, it did that flawlessly. And over here we do have the 3 infographics we just generated, which actually have the latest AI news. And now it's time we actually choose the settings from inside our interface over here, so we can actually go and schedule them in the different platforms. As you can see, we have these 3 different options. We can select Twitter, we can select LinkedIn, we can select Instagram. For example, for this one, let's say this one we only want to do Twitter, and let's say for this one we only want to do Instagram. Then over here we can also select the date and time. Let me just come over here and let's select tomorrow at let's say 2 p.m. for example. And let's come over here again and let's say I want to do this tomorrow at 5 p.m. again, and I will also come over here, I will do this tomorrow, and I will say this one at 6 p.m. Obviously you can schedule them however you want. I'm just doing this completely as an example to show you how it will actually work. And now guys, what we actually have to do is basically send in all this data that we have configured over here, which is basically all the scheduling data we need. So how we're actually going to do that is, before I come down here and click on post all infographics, what I have to do is come back over to N8N and come over here and click on the plus icon. And what I will do guys is I will create a brand new webhook over here, which this webhook will basically get all the scheduling data and use it in our brand new workflow we're going to build right now. So again, I will come over here and change this from get to post, and I will simply come over here and copy this URL, and then I will come over here and say send in all the scheduling data to this webhook URL, and then I pasted in the URL I just copied, and then I also said don't change the options I have already made for them to be scheduled. So basically these options, obviously you won't have to type that, I just don't want to make all of these options again, that's why I said it. And I'll simply come over here and click on enter, and now Lovable will actually embed this webhook URL inside our app over here, and then we will simply be able to come and click on post all infographics and get all this data back within N8N. And boom, Lovable just finished making the changes. So let's actually test them. But before I come over here and click on post all infographics, what I have to do is come back over to N8N and make sure our brand new webhook is actually listening and expecting to receive data. And then I will come back over to Lovable and simply come over here and click on post all infographics, and as you can see, all infographics are posted. And if I come back over to N8N, I come over here to the webhook and I open this up, we can see that we do in fact have data inside here, which means that we have successfully managed to connect our front-end interface in Lovable with this brand new webhook that we have over here in N8N. Let me actually come over here and pin this data, so if something goes wrong in the next nodes, I don't actually have to rerun this. And if we actually scroll down here, we can see all of the data for the infographics. We can see for each infographic specifically which platform we want to post it in and the specific date and time, as you can see over here. So now what we actually have to do is to make this data a little bit more easily digestible, I would say, so we can actually practically use it in the next nodes. So to do that, I will come over here and add in a split out node, in which I will come over here, taking this infographic schema and drag and drop this over here, and we'll click on execute step, and you can see that it actually outputs us all of this data, which is actually going to help us when we are scheduling our posts. And how we're going to do that is we're going to use a service like Blotato, which is actually a third-party API that allows us to schedule posts from inside N8N. Now guys, I spent a lot of time, and I do mean a lot of time, I spent multiple hours doing research on what is the best way to actually schedule posts on these platforms, and by far the best way was Blotato. It is the easiest and actually the cheapest way to schedule posts from within N8N. And they also do have a free trial, but just to let you know, the free trial doesn't actually include their API. So if you actually want to get the API so you can schedule posts from within N8N, you actually will have to upgrade to a paid plan that right now is actually $29 per month, but they do offer a 30-day money back guarantee. You can try it, and if you don't like it, you can just simply request and get all of your money back. So I created my account and upgraded to the paid plan so I can actually access the API key. And the first thing you have to do guys is to come over here and click on the settings. And this will bring you over to this tab over here, which, as you can see, you have all of this social media in which you can actually schedule your post to. And all you have to do guys, simply click on login, for example, simply log in with your X account, then with your LinkedIn account, and then with your Instagram account. If you want to schedule posts in the other social media as well, again, the only thing you have to do is to log in, which is actually super simple compared to other ways I have found on the internet, which do require a lot of manual work from you in order for you to be able to post on your accounts. This is by far the simplest way I have found. And then, once you connected your accounts, as you can see, I did connect my Instagram account over here, my LinkedIn account, and my X account. You will have them over here in the connected account section. So keep that in mind, because we're going to use this section in a bit. But now what you have to do is come over here and click on the help button, and this will open up the Blotato docs. Do not get intimidated by the docs guys, that's actually super simple to navigate. So now guys, all we have to do is to scroll all the way down here to where you see this API section, and we need to come over here to the API reference. And since the first thing we actually have to do is to actually upload the media over to Blotato so you can actually have access to them and then you can schedule them, we actually have to come over here and click on upload media. And what this will do is open up these docs over here, which basically explain to us how we're going to be able to do that. We have to come over here to the base URL, simply make sure we actually copy this, and then we have to come back over to N8N, simply come over here, click on the plus icon and search for an HTTP request. And the reason we're using an HTTP request is so we're actually able to access Blotato, since there doesn't exist a Blotato node inside N8N. And now all we have to do, guys, is come over here in the URL and simply paste in the URL we just copied. But we're not done yet, because if we go back over to the Blotato docs, we can see that this is the base URL, but we also need to put in this URL at the end, so it actually knows to upload the media. So I'll simply copy this, come back over here, simply paste this in. I will also come over here in the method and change it from get to post, because as you can see over here in the docs, it says the method should be post. But now, before we do anything else, we need to come over here and add in some authentication, which means that we basically need to give it our API key. So how we're gonna do that? We're gonna have to come over here to authentication and change this from none to generic credential type. Then over here in the generic auth type, we have to come over here and select header auth. And over here we need to create new credentials. So I'll simply come over here and click on create new credentials. And over here we need a name and we need a value. So in the name you have to type Blotato-API-key. And in the value over here we need to actually give it our Blotato API key, which we can actually find by going over to Blotato over here in the settings tab and simply scrolling all the way down here to where you see API access. Simply come over here, generate an API key if you haven't done it yet. Simply click on copy API key and then come back over to N8N and simply paste in this key. You can also come over here and name it if you want. I will name it Blotato so I don't actually forget it, and I will simply come over here and click on save. And as you can see, our credentials were successfully created. So now if I come and click off of this here, I can actually come and select my Blotato credentials, and this will actually be saved if you actually want to use it in future nodes as well, which we're actually going to use it, so that actually does come pretty handy. If we come back over to the docs, we can see that the only request we need to give with this specific node is basically a body request, which is going to be the URL, and then we actually need to input the actual URL we want to upload. We have to come back over to N8N, simply come over here in the send body parameters. Let's open this up. And now we actually need to come over here and give it a name. And if you remember, in the docs it said URL, so we actually need to name it exactly as it said, URL. And over here in the value, we actually need to input the image URL link. But there is a problem with the data that we have right now, because sure, we do have the image URLs, but since some URLs we actually want to post them to multiple platforms, for example like the first one, we want to post it on LinkedIn, on Instagram and on Twitter, and we will not be able to do that in the way we have the data right now, because we will only upload this URL once, and then we're actually trying to schedule it, we're gonna have to run into some trouble and actually have to troubleshoot quite a lot. So how we're actually going to circumvent this future issue, guys, is we simply come over here and click off of this, and what we will do is we will add in another node in between those two, which is going to be, guys, another split out node. And the reason we're going to do that, and you will see right now, is we will basically come over here, take in the platforms, drag and drop them over here. And what we'll do is come over here to include a changes from no other fields to all other fields, since we also want to split out the URLs. And if I come over here and click on execute step, you will see that we do have 5 different items rather than 3 over here, which basically means that if we come over here and look at it in table format, that we have an image URL for every platform we want to post on. Now obviously these image URLs are the same, but they are also split out for LinkedIn, Instagram and X, which is going to come very handy later on when we actually try to schedule them separately in these different platforms. So now I will simply come and click off of here. I will come again over here in the HTTP request, open this up, and this time we're gonna come over here to the URL, and we're going to take the URL from the split out 2 node, simply take this and drag and drop this over here. So now all we have to do is to come over here and click on execute step, and boom, you can see that the images were successfully uploaded over to Blotato's database. So now Blotato basically has access to the images, and now we need to tell Blotato when we actually wanted to post them. So let's actually go and do that. The first thing we'll have to do is come over here, and we're going to add an if node, guys. And the reason we're going to do that is because we want to separate the different platforms that we actually want to post on. And that's the reason why we actually needed to split out the data to make our life significantly easier in this specific node. So now I can simply come over here, open this up and say if the platform over here is equal to, and let's say for this example, This is for LinkedIn. So I'll simply come over here in the value, copy the value exactly as it is inside the data, simply paste it in over here. So we'll say if this image is meant to be posted on LinkedIn, and I'll click on execute step, and you can see we do have an output. 2 of them are true and 3 of them are false, which means that 2 of these images are actually meant to be posted on LinkedIn. So now we'll simply come and click off here, and now we actually need to configure the true parameter so we can actually schedule post the LinkedIn images. But before we actually schedule post them, we obviously need to have a description for them so we can actually give Blotato that description as well, so you can actually post the image and the description together on LinkedIn. So to do that, I will actually come over here and add in an OpenAI node and specifically an analyze image node, so we can actually give it the image we just uploaded on Blotato, so you can basically analyze the content and then based on the analysis of this node actually create a description for LinkedIn. Now you might say, but Damian, you actually over here used in a Google Sheet to which you uploaded the prompt of this AI agent, so we can actually use it later on in this exact step to actually help us create the description. I think by actually analyzing this image is actually a better way to go about it, and if we actually had to use Google Sheets over here, we would actually need to do a lot of steps because we don't actually have the original data, we have transformed it with the split out nodes, so it honestly would be a hassle. So that's why I'm adding this. So this node is basically useless, you can simply come over here and delete it. I'm leaving these parts in the video guys to see how we actually build a workflow in real time and how we actually optimize it when we run into issues, because if we actually use the Google Sheet node over here, we would run into a lot of issues. So that's why I chose to change this. So over here we have the analyze image node, so all we have to do is to open this up. Obviously we need to select our OpenAI credentials. I'll select mine. Over here on the resource we leave it on image, on operation we leave it on analyze image, on model we need to choose an AI model, I will select GPT-4o. Over here in the text input we basically need to tell this node what we wanted to do. I will leave this on what is in this image, and I will also say, so what I want you to do is analyze this image to find out what the content of it is, and then I want you to craft me a description about this specific image that is optimized to perform very well on this specific platform. And now guys, what I will do is I will come over here to where I have all the data and simply take in the platform that we actually want to post on, which for this example is LinkedIn. But I will basically take the schema and simply drag and drop this over here. So this AI node actually knows what platform it should optimize this description for. And then I also told it, make sure you output only the specific description and nothing else. And now what I will do guys, simply come and close this off, and I have to give it access to the image so you can actually analyze it. So how we're actually going to do that is we're going to come over here in the HTTP request to where we have uploaded all of our images to Blotato and simply taken this URL and drag and drop this over here. Which means that now the analyze image node actually has access to the images. And now all I have to do is to simply come over here and click on execute step. And we can see it is actually executing right now. And boom, it just finished generating. And as you can see, we do have an output over here, which is the content. And it's the exact description we can literally copy and paste over to LinkedIn that is specifically optimized for that platform to perform very well. So now it's time we actually schedule this image to be posted. So to do that, we simply have to come and click off of here, and we're going to come over here and search for an HTTP request again. Why we're doing that? With this HTTP request, we basically will tell Blotato, hey, I want you to post this specific image at this specific time. So how I'm gonna configure this? Well, it's actually pretty simple. So we need to come over to the Blotato docs again, but this time, since we actually want to post and not upload an image, we simply will come over here and click on publish post. So we will select that. We actually have instructions of how we can configure this. So all I will do is simply take in the URL again, copy it, come back over to N8N, simply paste it in. Then I will come back over to the Blotato docs, taking the second part of the URL again, paste it in. I will come over here in the HTTP method and change it from get to post. And over here in the authentication, we again need to tell Blotato which user we actually are. So all we'll do is come over here, change this from none to generic credential type, and then we'll come over here and select header auth. But if you remember, we have already saved our API key and our credentials, so all I will do is simply come over here and select Blotato. And now if we come back over to the Blotato docs and we scroll down, we can see all of these different parameters, and I know a lot of you might get intimidated by those guys, but they're actually super simple to understand. So what this basically tell you is the body parameters we actually need to send over to Blotato, and they tell you which ones that are actually required and which ones they're actually not required. But what we'll do first is we're gonna come and scroll all the way down here, guys. We're gonna pass through all of these parameters for now. And don't worry, these are actually super simple to actually configure. I will show you exactly how you can do that. And we're gonna come over here to the examples. What we have to do over here, guys, is you simply need to select what we want to do. Since we don't want to post to a platform immediately, we actually want to schedule a time to post. All we'll do is we will simply come over here and start copying from this curly bracket all the way down to the top. And we simply will come over here and copy this. And we're going to come back over to N8N. Make sure we actually click on send body parameters, since these are actually body parameters. And then over here, we will change this from using fields below to using JSON. And we will paste this in. Now, you could leave it on using fields below and configure it that way, but I genuinely think that configure it with JSON is actually way faster and way easier. And I will show you exactly how you can do it. And trust me, by the end of this, you will actually understand how you can configure JSON like this. So, all we have to do is come over here and click on expression. And actually, let's open this up so we can actually take a better look at it. And now over here, we need to configure all of this. Now you're like, oh, this is code. I don't know how to configure this. Well, guys, this is super simple. First of all, most of these things you can actually understand what they are just by reading them. So over here, media URLs, what could that possibly be? Well, that's probably the link that we have uploaded to Blotato, right? Over here in the platform, what could that possibly be as well? Obviously, it's the platform that we actually want to post on. But if you don't know what some of them or all of them are, all you have to do is come back over to the Blotato docs and simply scroll up here to where you see all of these different things. And you can see these are the parameters for YouTube, these are for Blue Sky, these are for Threads. So since we actually want to post on LinkedIn, we simply have to scroll all the way up here to where we see the LinkedIn parameters. And as you can see, guys, the only required parameter for LinkedIn is actually the target type, which is basically the platform we want to post, which the only value we should input is LinkedIn. Now you're like, but there were more parameters inside the JSON file. And yes, there were, because these are the specific parameters for each specific platform. But if we come over here, we can see that all of these are actually the parameters that are inside the request body we just copied. So over here we have post, and over here we have the possible value it can be. But the good thing with us copying the JSON and simply pasting it in is that we have most of these already set up, and we don't actually need to go and input them as fields below, which is the other method you can actually configure this, which I told you before. That's why I think JSON is actually better and faster. So to actually configure the JSON we have, we only have to change some minor things. So if we come over to N8N, the things that we actually have to change are the account ID, is the text, is basically the description we just created over here, then the media URLs, which is basically the link to the image, then the platform, basically what platform we want to post on, then the target type, again, which is the platform that we want to post basically, and then over here, we don't actually need to configure the page ID, because if you don't remember, this wasn't a required field on LinkedIn. So now, all we have to do is to configure these three things, and I will show you exactly how you're going to configure them right now. So let's actually go and do that. So over here for the account ID, this is the only part, honestly, that you actually might need to read the documentation, but since I have already read it, I know that the account ID is basically over here. So once you log in with your LinkedIn account, you will see your connected accounts over here, and as you can see, I have my LinkedIn connected account. So basically how you can get your account ID by simply coming over here to your LinkedIn account, simply clicking on copy account ID. So now we actually copy this, and all we have to do is to come back over to N8N and simply delete the previous account ID that is inside here and simply paste in this ID. So now let's actually go and configure the rest of the JSON. So over here in the text, what we actually need to do is delete the dummy text it has over here. And what we'll do is simply take in the text we just generated over here and simply drag and drop this inside this code. Make sure, guys, it is actually inside the code. So now Blotato knows what text we actually want in our post. Then over here in the media URLs, what we actually have to do is simply come over here to where we actually uploaded the URLs, simply take in the URL schema, simply drag and drop this over here, and we actually would need to input these two quotes over here and at the end as well, so it's actually correct JSON. So make sure you input these two quotes as well. And now over here in the platform, we will obviously change this to LinkedIn, but we actually need to make sure we actually type it exactly as it should be, caps included, so you can actually send in the post to that platform. So as you can see, I went over to the docs to where you see platform over here, and I'll simply come and copy LinkedIn over here. As you can see, there aren't any caps in the word. and I will simply come back over here and simply paste this in. Then over here in target type, again this is basically the platform, so I will simply come and paste in LinkedIn, and the page ID we don't actually need it, so we don't actually need to configure it. And over here in the schedule time, all we have to do is come over here in the split out node, since we also have the schedule time over here, and simply delete the previous schedule time we have, that's obviously fake, and take in the schema and drag and drop this over here. Which means that we now have configured all the parameters we actually needed for LinkedIn. So now all we have to do is to simply come and close this off, and we can simply come over here and click on execute step. And boom, we do have an output, and as you can see, it was actually submitted to be posted at that specific time over here, which means that we have successfully managed to schedule the LinkedIn post. Now if you don't want to have to make all these configurations and build this whole automation and the rest we're going to build right now, what you can actually do is simply click the link down below and join my school community. Simply navigate to the classroom, come over here to where it says assets, locate the video that you want to download the JSON file, simply click on the JSON and click on download. And then come over to N8N, simply click on these three dots over here, click on import from file, upload the JSON, and the whole automation will populate for you automatically, so you basically won't have to build anything yourself. Inside the community, I also have a full N8N course in which I go everything that I wish somebody told me when I started N8N, so you basically can go from a beginner to a pretty decent level of knowledge with N8N by simply watching this course. And I also have an AI SaaS roadmap course in which I show you how you can build your own AI SaaS. And also I'm about to start a project in which I actually go from $0 with a completely brand new account on Upwork over to $10,000, and I basically show my whole strategy and everything that I do behind the scenes to achieve that. So if that interests you, definitely make sure you click on the link in the description and join the school community. Alright, so let's actually get back to N8N and finish the automation. We have successfully managed to schedule the post over here in LinkedIn. Now what we have to do is to actually schedule the post for Instagram and for X as well. So to do that, I will simply have to come over here and add in another if node. And in this if node, guys, what we'll actually check for is whether the split out value from over here, and as you can see, we don't actually have access to it, so I've made a mistake here. What I actually need to do is come and close this off, so we don't have access to it right now. Take this, connect it with this over here, so we basically have another if node over here, that basically, if I open this up now, you can see that we actually do have access to the split out node over here, much better. So we basically will take the platform and we'll say if this platform actually equals, and let's see exactly how we have typed Instagram here, so we can actually compare it, and we can see we have typed it like this, so with a capital at the start. So we'll say if this platform equals to Instagram, we click on execute step, and we'll see two of these images actually are meant to be posted on Instagram. So then we will basically have to do the exact same thing. But since we have already done that, let's actually not create the nodes from the start. Let's actually just simply copy them, simply paste them over here, and what we have to do is to do minor tweaks to them so we can actually customize them for Instagram. So first we'll open the analyze image to actually see its prompt, and if we open this up, we can see that we actually don't need to change anything in here because we basically give it context for which platform it should optimize the description for. So now let's close this off since we don't actually need to change anything inside this node. Let's come over here in the HTTP request node, which basically all of the top parameters over here will be exactly the same. The only things we have to do is come over here, open up the JSON. We can also see the description that it just created us for Instagram specifically. If we see over here, we have the text configured, we have the media URLs configured. What we need to do is change the platform over here from LinkedIn. So if I come over here to the docs, as you can see Instagram, and I'll make sure I copy it exactly as it is said over here, and simply come back, paste this in. Also over here in the target type, we also need to change this to Instagram, and then the last thing we actually need to change is this account ID. So to change this, you have to come over here to the Blotato settings. First you need to make sure you log in with your Instagram account. I have done that. So over here in my connected accounts, I have my Instagram account, and I will simply come over here and click on copy account ID. And then I will simply come back over to N8N, simply delete the previous ID I had over there, simply paste the brand new one in, and now all we have to do is simply come and close this off, and it's time we actually execute the step to schedule the post on Instagram as well. So to do that, I will come over here, click on execute step, and boom, as you can see, it was executed successfully, which means that we have scheduled the post for Instagram at the specific times we actually wanted. It's time we also do the exact same thing, But this time for X, I will again come over here and select an if node, and this time I'll actually make sure I connect it correctly, so I'll simply connect it over here, and let's also pull those all back at the top so it kinda looks better. I like it much better that way. Now we open this up and we will say again in the split out node, does platform over here actual equal, and let's see how we have typed X exactly. So if we come over here and we go over the split out node, we'll go over here to where we have the data, we can see that platform over here we have it on X/Twitter. So if we didn't actually put that in exactly as it is right here, this if node wouldn't actually come out as true, and we wouldn't actually be able to post all of this over to X. And that's why it is so important to actually match it exactly as we have written it. So I'll simply come over here and paste this in, and if I come over here and click on execute step, you can see that one of them is actually true, which is great. And now we'll come over here, copy these two nodes, simply paste them in, and we'll connect them with a true function over here. We will leave the analyze image exactly the same, since we don't actually need to change anything inside it. And we'll come over here in the HTTP request, we will leave all of this the same. Let's also execute the previous node so we actually have the message. And I will come over here in the JSON, simply open this up. And all we have to change again, guys, is the account ID and the platform and the target type again. So let's first come back over here to the docs to see how X is actually written. As you can see, it is actually written as Twitter, so we actually have to copy this exactly as it is and come back over to N8N, simply delete the previous one that we had over here, paste this in, and go over here in the target type. And again, we need to delete this and paste this in. And now what we actually need to do is also change the account ID. So to do that, make sure you come over to the Blotato, you log in with your Twitter account over here, and once you have, you will see your linked Twitter account over here. So all you have to do is to come over here and click on copy account ID, and then simply come back over to N8N, delete the previous account ID we had over here and simply paste this one in. And now if we actually close this, we actually come over here and click on execute step, we can see it actually is invalid because tweet is longer than 280 characters, which it can actually not be. So to actually troubleshoot this issue, and guys, I'll leave these issues deliberately inside the video so you can see how we can troubleshoot them. All we have to do is come over here to the analyze image and simply, let's open this up so you can see this better, and simply tell the AI over here, make sure the text is no longer than 280 letters. And now if we close this off and we come over here again and we click on execute, and we open this up so you can actually take a better look at it, we can actually see that this time it was actually successful and it actually did manage to schedule the post for X in the exact time that we wanted, which is simply amazing. And it means that we have fully built our backend in N8N for our infographic generator app, which actually is able to also schedule this post over to different social medias. So make sure you come and check out the school community, and especially the N8N course, which, as you can see over here, has all of these lessons inside it. It goes over everything you need as a beginner, HTTP request, everything you need to know about AI agents. I also go over multi-agent systems, and then over here I also talk about strategy of building automations and how you can actually map them out the most optimal, the best way if you're a beginner, and that is the part you struggle with the most. So definitely make sure you join in the school community. You will also get access to more than 120 people that are interested on using AI to build a business and actually make money with it. And also you will get access to the Upwork series, which I'm actually going to start recording after I finish this video, which is basically me going from $0 over to $10,000 on Upwork with a brand new account. So make sure you go and check out the community, the link will be in the description below. And I also do offer a free trial. You can just join completely for free for 7 days, and if you don't actually like it, you can just cancel your trial and leave without you paying anything. So definitely make sure you go and check it out, the link will be in the description below. But now YouTube also thinks you're going to enjoy this video, in which I actually built a $1 million business using just Lovable and N8N. So make sure you go and watch that next, and I will see you over there.